Hey everybody, Coach Dane here at Premier Athletic Therapy for the Run Experience. Today, I'm here with my trainer, Bianca Paymont. We're talking about why I started lifting heavier weights about 2 months ago, what the most important exercise is for runners with some weight work to do, and why we do it. We're gonna break down the deadlift for you today, as well as some scaling options for you. So if you don't have a bar at home, you've got some options on how to do it. So stick around. Bianca, tell me why. I asked you what's the one thing I need to do here in the gym and the one thing runners need to have explained, and you picked deadlift. Why?
I think strength-wise, when it comes to deadlifts, it targets your entire posterior chain. And as a runner, every time you strike the ground, you're propelling yourself forward, so your entire posterior chain is activated. So the stronger we can get with that, the more benefits we'll see when we're running.
Cool. I've seen benefits. I'm faster than I've been in a long time, and it's partly because of the work I've been doing with you. So we're going to do it. We've got a little bit of weight on the bar today. I didn't realize how many mistakes I was making with deadlift until I started spending time with you here. And so we're going to dig into it today, and you're going to critique everything I do and what I'm doing. My first question, I took off my shoes. Should I have my shoes on or off?
Complete personal preference. Shoes off, you do feel the ground a bit more, so we can get a bit more activation through the muscles in the feet. So definitely green light to take the shoes off. If you feel safer, just because there's weights around, you want to keep your shoes on, also totally fine.
Cool. What's my first cue? Where do I need to be?
All right, so if we are squatting, we tend to go shoulder width apart with the feet.
Yep.
In a hinge movement, because this deadlift is part of the hinge family, we want to have the feet hip width apart, so a little bit closer there.
Hip width.
Hip width. So then when we go to pick up the bar, we can bend the knees through here as long as we're keeping the back nice and flat. Hands are just outside of the knees, so that's perfect. From the ground here, we want to take the tension out of the bar. So we want to pull the shoulder blades back. There's a little sound that we made on the bar. That's perfect.
Yep.
And then we're just going to push away the floor and stand up straight. Good. So from the top here, we are pushing the toes into the ground just to get a slight activation there. You can even try to rip the ground in half. Then we're keeping our good posture. We're pulling the ribs in just to keep that spine neutral. And we're gonna slide that bar down the legs as the hips go back, keeping the back nice and flat. So chest is gonna come over past the toes, knees are staying over the ankles, and then we come.
What are our risks here? What can go wrong?
If we bend the back right away, we're getting a lot of tension, a lot more force going through your spine. So that is definitely something we want to make sure that we're keeping the back flat. Not only are we keeping it flat, but we're keeping some tension in the core in the front to make sure that the back muscles aren't kicking in and taking over.
Bianca, how much weight should I put on the bar?
That depends on where you are at. You don't want to start with too much weight until that form is, you're very comfortable with the form.
Right, so empty bar to start?
100%.
Cool.
Start with that, work your way up. If we're looking to gain strength here, if we're really focusing on strength development, a set anywhere from 5 to 8 is probably your go-to. And so what you kind of a golden rule you want to think of is the last 1 to 2 reps, you'll start to feel that it is heavy and it'll start to feel challenging. If it feels challenging on rep number 2, we're probably too heavy. Cool. If you get to the end on your last rep and you're like, it's still light, well then we need to add a little bit more.
If I'm doing this at home, I don't have a bar, I don't have a ton of weight kicking around. Or if I'm still building some strength toward that movement and I don't feel super confident with this complex movement on my own, what do I do?
So if you are already familiar with the movement and you feel confident in your form, then we can do a variation where we're going to use kettlebells or dumbbells.
Right, and is that a good way to start as well if I'm not used to the movement?
If you're not used to the movement and this is a brand new thing you're trying to incorporate, a dowel RDL would be my first go-to.
What does RDL mean?
RDL is your regular deadlift or Romanian deadlift.
Sure.
Right? Very common abbreviation to use RDL.
Okay.
So you're going to put that dowel on your back. You're going to hold it with one hand on top, one hand on the bottom. So right away, we can feel 3 points of contact. So your head's touching the dowel, your back is touching the dowel, and your hips are touching the dowel. Okay? So from there, feet are still hip width apart. We have a slight bend in the knees, and then we're going to push the hips back into our hinge movement. Keep the knees over the ankles. So just butt up in the air a little bit more there. Yeah, good. So we should feel stretch in the hamstring, and we feel the dowel still in contact with the head, the shoulders, and the hips. If we were to round our back here, tuck your bum under, right? You could feel it right away. Dowel
Cool.
pops off the hip. So
Yep.
this way we know that the dowel stays in contact the whole way, that our back is nice and flat,
Amazing.
and we come right back up. So
The best tool for runners, the first piece of strength equipment you should get is a dowel.
a dowel.
For sure. Okay, let's talk about a kettlebell variation.
So now if we're comfortable with the hinge movement, we'd want to add some weight, but we either don't have the bar or we're not comfortable with that much weight yet.
Yep.
Pair of dumbbells, pair of kettlebells, we're going to do the exact same movement. So we're
Right.
going to bend the knees, keep the back flat to start, reach down to the floor to pick them up. Shoulder blades back, nice big chest, flat back, and stand up. Good. And then here we don't even have to bring them to the floor every time. We're just going to push the hips back, keep the hands by our side, and come back up.
Let's talk about knees for a second.
Yeah.
Where do I want my knees to track here? Because I know personally, when I've got some weaknesses, my knees can kind of collapse in, and I know you tell me that's wrong.
So we want to keep the hips, knees, and ankles all stacked. So just have the butt up a little bit more,
Right?
less of a squat, more of a even higher. Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Perfect.
So if we have those knees stacked in line with our hips and our toes, we know we're keeping them straight. You can even imagine brick walls on either side, so you're pressing out, and we can get a bit more activation through the side of the legs. We don't want those to cave in.
I love it. Thank you so much for breaking down this complex movement. I know it's helped me become a better runner, and I think people are going to really benefit from it if they get in the gym.
Perfect.
Thanks.
My pleasure.